Welcome to the Deeper Conversations with Willma, Beyond What You Know. And today, we have the honor of hosting His Excellency, Pelle Enarsson, Ambassador of the European Union to South Sudan. In this episode, we will dive into the EU's mission, partnerships, and impact in South Sudan. Ambassador Pelle, thank you for joining the Deeper Conversations with Willma. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. How do you feel being here today?
It feels good. What a professional studio you have built.
Oh, you like it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have been in South Sudan for a long time. Do we consider you a South Sudanese now? Can I say hi in Arabic?
Well, assalamualaikum salam.
Okay.
But I don't feel old in Sudan. I've only been here since September. Mm-hmm. So it takes time to understand a country, and also a complex country like this, a new country with very many different challenges. Mm-hmm. It really takes time. I think this is part of the problem for many diplomats, that we come here, we're here quite short time. So we need to learn to know the place very quickly. Mm-hmm. But I would still consider myself a newcomer. It takes time to get to understand the fabric of a country, and I'm still learning. Mm-hmm. I'm still learning.
What have you learned about our culture, language, or food?
Well, I first of all, the thing that strikes me is how incredibly big this place is, and how many different people live in this big place. Mm-hmm. I've been flying in different directions, and it takes hours to get out of the country. So that's the one thing, that it's an impressively big country with a lot of variety, a lot of richness. Mm-hmm. So those are my main takeaways. Mm-hmm. And I love you people. I think you are very, very happy and
very tall.
Huh?
We are very happy and very tall.
Tall, yes. That's I was with the Minister of Energy at the Fulla Falls over the weekend, and I sent some video clips to my wife, and she noted that how short are you really? Because I'm always like half a meter under.
I can relate. Yeah. South Sudan is projected wrongly outside. Mm-hmm. Coming to South Sudan, what have you learned about South Sudan? What did you discover about South Sudan?
What did you mean with projected wrongly?
So people believe that South Sudan is not a safe country to be in.
I would say that South Sudan is both a safe country and an unsafe country to be in. So there are reasons for those images of the outside world. There has been, first of all, before independence, there was a very long and very bloody and difficult civil war here.
Right.
But only a few years after independence, more civil war. We are seeing hundreds of thousands of people fleeing the South Sudanese Defense Forces doing an offensive in Jonglei as we speak. Mm-hmm. So you can't say that it's a safe country. It still has a lot of violence. Mm-hmm. One other aspect which is seen by the outside is the dependency that this country has of external help. Roughly 9 million out of the 12 or 13 million people in South Sudan needs humanitarian assistance from the abroad every year. And so, of course, those images, of people in need, war, massacres that have been hitting us in the news lately, gives this impression of a very unsafe place. And I would argue it is an unsafe place. Still in the world, if you look around, it is an unsafe place. But then there are pockets of very stable and nice environment. And I told you I came from Nimule over the weekend. And in Nimule, it was like a normal border town. And the whole road trip down to Nimule, I never felt that there was any threats. So, of course, there are parts of the country that are safe. I also visited late last year, I visited the Boma National Park. And we went to the Murle community there, and they took incredibly good care of us. And I never felt unsafe. So, yes, it's a mixed picture. But what hits the news in Europe and around the world are when massacres happen, when the government actually uses air forces to bomb a hospital, which is providing healthcare to people. Those are the things that shouldn't happen, but when they happen, they do really hit the news.
Right. What inspired you to pursue a career in diplomacy?
I grew up in Kenya, not so far away from here. Yeah, in Kenya.
You speak Swahili?
Kidogo kabisa.
Kidogo kabisa.
I did speak Swahili when I was around 18. I moved around in Nairobi and could speak Swahili, but then I traveled to Tanzania and I realized my Swahili was really very bad.
Okay.
So I grew up. I moved to Kenya when I was 3 years, and my parents were working in development cooperation.
Okay.
Both my mother and father, and so I grew up in Kisii, not far from the shores of Lake Victoria, and Murang'a, north of Nairobi, and in Nairobi, and I think already then I decided I wanted to work with development and diplomacy as part of developing and supporting building relationship between countries. It came with so to say the mother milk.
That's quite interesting. What are some of the challenges that the EU is facing?
Well, I think the implementation of the peace agreement is the core challenge right now. South Sudan has a peculiar situation because it's governed by a peace agreement that was negotiated in a very difficult negotiation between many different parties. And so I think right now there needs to be a transition out of this arrangement and have a more directly elected, directly responsible government to the people. The sharing of power as it has been dealt with in the peace agreement was necessary because you had warring factors. The civil war was a fact. But now there needs to be a way out of this, and that can only happen through really substantial political dialogue with all the parties that were involved, and to agree on a way forward to have elections and to have a government that feels responsible to its people, a fully fledged government, I would say.
What are your main goals in your time in office in South Sudan?
So I don't have my own main goals. I'm representing the EU. The EU is here to support people. That's the first thing. So I spoke about the humanitarian needs. We are here to alleviate some of the suffering of people. And this is another story here. We are supporting also Sudanese refugees that come here.
From Sudan?
Yeah, from Sudan. From the war in Sudan, they come here, and we are also supporting to take care of them. And here, this is one untold story about South Sudan, that South Sudan is receiving very many people from the conflict in Sudan. But so that's the one first thing, humanitarian aid, supporting the people that are really in need of life-saving assistance. The second thing is the peace agreement and the implementation of peace agreement, the transition out of this arrangement and into a more normal setting with a new constitution and a new political arrangement that is agreed by the parties here. And part of that is, of course, to help every way to stop the violence through mediation or other, working with the African Union and other mediators. But I would like to add a third component, and that has to do with transitioning away from this humanitarian need situation. So we are supporting projects that enables trade. We are supporting bringing green electricity here. We are supporting feeder roads to bring farmers closer to markets. You know, these basic things that are needed for any society to grow. Even if the violence is ongoing and there's conflict in parts of the country, we cannot wait until everything is fine. We have to keep on investing. These investments takes a lot of time. So those are I would say, the three main priorities of the EU.
How does the EU measure the impact of its projects?
It's a quite complicated process. Right now, we don't provide any aid or development cooperation directly with the government. We don't feel that the public financial management system here is transparent enough, and the corruption level is also high. This country ranks among the worst in corruption. So we don't do direct support with the government, which I regret, because in my own view, that's the most effective way to support. So we have to go through other entities, and many times it comes down to international organizations, UN in particular, but the electricity connector that I spoke to about is with the African Development Bank. So different international partners to work, and they also work with local partners here. And the control of transparency, so we audit, of course, all our projects. There's a very strict procedure. Our implementing partners will have to report on results. We assess them. We do audits. So I feel quite safe that our money is spent for the purpose that we put out. But I would like to move into a system where you have a very clear government budget, transparency around the public finance management system, and where we could see that, for instance, our support to the health sector or our support to the education sector actually goes together with resources from the government. I met the Minister of Finance yesterday, and I raised that particular point with him. And it's also about the debt situation. We don't really have a full picture of how much external debt there is in South Sudan, which means that for financial lenders, it's hard to get the full picture, and that is needed to get to take down the risk. People that lend money don't want to risk defaults of the entity that borrows.
Why is South Sudan considered a strategic partner?
Well, it's a strategic place. First of all, I would say that it's a bit more than strategic. There is a strong sense of solidarity with the people of South Sudan. The independence was supported. So this is a driving reason why the EU is here. And we were here already in the 70s to support the autonomous Southern Sudan region and supported the government at that time, the Southern Sudan government. So there's a long history of us supporting the independence of South Sudan, and that is absolutely still a reason for us to be here. But if you look at the region in a wider perspective, of course, trade routes, Europe is depending on the Red Sea. If there's stability here, and in the Horn of Africa, that is very important to us. So instability is not good. So that's another reason for us to invest. And of course, that migration is something that is of major concern to many European countries. And this part of Africa is a transit route for quite many migrants from Somalia, from Eritrea, from Ethiopia. They pass through here and make their way towards Libya and then eventually Europe. And the more insecurity there is, the more non-governance, the more opportunities there are for people that want to smuggle people and to bribe people for smuggling. So I think those are some of the reasons. I would say that in the long term, a developed South Sudan is definitely also in Europe's interest. There are so many potential areas of cooperation. Trade. I met the Minister of Trade this morning. We spoke about trade arrangements. You have incredible agricultural lands here, and we need in Europe. We need to import exotic fruits and vegetables. And you can see how successful Kenya has been. When I go to the supermarket in Sweden, I can find Kenyan peace, and imagine the South Sudanese produce that could come there. I think the tourism sector is another area where, Europeans could fly here. It's closer to Europe than Kenya. So the potential of visiting incredible sites here. Business, definitely. As the country develops, you would need hydropower stations. European industry would be interested to take part of that market. So in the longer term, when there is more stability, I think there are many different threads of why we would like to see South Sudan as a strategic partner.
I like what you mentioned, because South Sudan is a country that has a very fertile land, but still we get to get food from Uganda and Kenya for a country that is very, very blessed. So we hope that becomes a concern to the country to work on. How does the EU collaborate with the United Nations, African Union and others?
As a multilateral organization, the EU, it's easy to forget, but we are also a multilateral organization. We have our member states, and with that multilateral base, it's quite easy for us to understand and work together with the UN and together with the African Union. So there's a very natural coordination between these three multilateral organizations. There's a kinship between us, so I think that's important to understand. And we coordinate very closely with the African Union. We coordinate very closely with the UN here.
All right. You did mention education in your during the introduction. How does the EU? How is it working hard to make sure that access to education is easy?
That's a issue here in South Sudan.
Right.
I've seen some statistics about how many actually complete school here and how many can read and how many can use algebra. And if you look at the statistics, South Sudan is absolutely among the bottom countries in that regard. I think there's a difficult legacy also of non-investment in schooling from the old colonial times, and during the Sudan years, this was a neglected part of the country, and many of the kids here had to go to northern Sudan to study, etc. Although there are interesting exceptions, like Yuba University, I think is an astonishing place and a vibrant place. So there are exceptions, but out in the countryside, the infrastructure for schooling is really very poor. So we are working with international partners, UNICEF and other UN organizations, to support schooling in very close coordination with the Minister of Education. So I have met the minister many times. We took part in the back to school day in a whale, and so we are. This is of course a core investment that needs to happen with education. So we are.
Back to Learning campaign was launched recently in WOW, and that was such an outstanding initiative.
Yes, so I wasn't there myself. Unfortunately, I was on travel, and my deputy was there together with the Minister of Education. So it was really to launch the school year and celebrate that. I don't know how large we are in the education sector compared to others, but I can see my colleague here also from the UK. So we are a couple of donors that are really engaged in this sector, and it is absolutely a requirement to invest in the young people. Interestingly, when I traveled to Nimule, I saw some private schools, some boarding schools. Early in the morning, as we left Juba, school children were piling up and walking in lines to different schools. So it's not that it doesn't happen, but it should be really something that is accessible to everyone, everywhere. I think we need to look at some innovative ideas too. I spoke to the CEO of MTN, and EU is supporting some MTN towers for mobile phones to solarize them to get green energy to power these mobile towers. And they basically are all over the country now. And with that mobile connectivity, of course, you can also look at more innovative solutions of bringing mobility to the schooling. So you could have more centralized teaching and tutoring. So I think we need to look also in innovative ways, because building a whole school system with buildings, teachers college, it takes a lot of time. We can't wait. So I think we need to look at some innovative solutions too for education.
What are some of the challenges that the EU discovered by going, to WOW, Nimule? What are the students facing?
Well, I have to say, I've been to Malakal, to Renk, and Nimule, and to Boma, and one thing that strikes me is, of course, the lack of infrastructure in general. That is definitely a challenge, and the levels of poverty is another it strikes you. Malakal is a very poor place, although it is growing. It's growing, and thanks to some of the international actors. But you can still see that there's a huge need of investment in these societies for them to really have the chance to take off in development terms.
I think I can tell that the EU is contributing a lot in so many ways to make sure that South Sudan is developing, especially when it comes to health and education. The EU recently did announce the Youth Empowerment Fund.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what initiatives are offered under that?
Yeah, this is interesting, because when I moved here from New York, I worked in New York for 6 years. And this global youth mobilization that is behind this program, I worked very closely with them for 6 years. It was about engaging young people in the UN and what UN is working with. It was an effort to revitalize the UN and have young people all around the world care more about the UN. That was the main objective of the work. And this is actually one of the results from that work. And I'm happy that the EU is supporting it. So this is it's organized by the 6 largest youth organizations in the world: the Scouts, the Red Cross Movement and Red Crescent Movement, the Girl Guides and Scouts, etc. 6 organizations that really are the largest mobilizers of young people. And the fund is supporting initiatives that young people come up with to implement the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. So that's how you bring the UN down to the field, and you empower young people to actually come up with their own projects in all the various goals of the Sustainable Development Goals that was approved, and the Agenda 2030. So that's what it is about.
Ambassador Pelle, which sector in South Sudan have the greatest potential for investment, growth, and long-term development?
I already mentioned some, Willma, and as I said, the agriculture sector is an obvious one. I can't refrain from talking about the visit at Fulla Falls in Nimule over the weekend. It was, a magnificent sight. And the beautiful thing with that particular project is that you could actually tap energy out of the river without stopping the river. So it's a partial dam. It's a run-of-the-river hydroelectric project. So water would still flow freely on the side, and you stop part of the water and you generate electricity. You don't build a full dam. It's like a pathway for the water through turbines. So it doesn't affect downstream countries like Sudan and Egypt wouldn't be affected by this tapping of the energy. And you would have the natural beauty left of the rapids, which sits in a national park. So agriculture, electricity and energy, and then tourism I mentioned already. So those are some of the sectors that I see huge potential in. And of course we know about the mineral resources. We have heard in the newspapers about gold concessions given in exchange for infrastructure development. Those things, the minerals are absolutely an asset for South Sudan.
Okay. How does the EU help strengthen democratic institutions and governance in the country?
Yes, that's a good question. So I mentioned before that we would support elections happening here if there's inclusive dialogue and the violence doesn't spread, and that you can have free and fair elections all over the country, and that you have a dialogue where all parties are. And of course, I would like to add that the government actually decides to finance these elections. But if that goes ahead, that's the first step really to democratization. Because right now we have the peace agreement that regulates how the governance system is supposed to happen. It's a power sharing deal between the parties of the peace agreement. And in such way, it's not a democratically elected government. It's a selected as part of a peace agreement. Now that has had a function in order for this country to move out of the full-blown civil war, but the country needs to take this step into a full-blown democracy, I would say. So we are there to support with electoral support. We are there to support on the constitution making, which would regulate this new governance system. And of course, in our dialogue with the government, we pursue our democratic values and really emphasize those in all our conversations.
You happened to meet His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Sudan. What were the key points of your meeting with His Excellency?
Well, this is a lovely diplomatic honor to present credentials. Yeah, you can see the picture. It's a very beautiful ceremony.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it gives a lot of chance to discuss policies and development. It's much more of a diplomatic function, but it's a very beautiful one. And I almost started crying when I heard the European anthem being played by the band. It's
Okay.
You get a bit emotional because it is a very beautiful ceremony. But I hope to be able to quite soon meet with the president again and then deepen the discussion on the policy issues that we've been talking about today.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing the feedback. How is the EU addressing the displacement caused by conflict and climate shock?
Yeah. So displacement, as I said, the SSPDF offensive in Jonglei has displaced maybe up to 200,000 people, maybe more. There's actually currently an assessment going on in Akobo where some of our partners will look at the displacement and see how people have been running away from the fighting. Although I heard there weren't much fighting in Akobo itself, but people basically vacated the place and went over the river to Ethiopia. We'll see what kind of needs they have. So it's difficult. These immediate displacements, it's very hard in very remote places to provide humanitarian assistance, but we still send teams there to assess and to come back with ideas of how we can support. But there's another type of more structured displacement. And I mentioned how South Sudan is taking care of Sudanese refugees and also South Sudanese who lived in Sudan, who's coming south when the conflict is affecting their areas. And that's why I visited Malakal and Renk to see the kind of institutional machinery that exists to take care of these people. And I have to say, it's pretty impressive that what we can do together. Also with the local authorities that are helping as much as they can, and with the UN. So people come over the border, they are received, they are registered if they are coming from Sudan. They are taken by barges down the Nile River or up the Nile River to Malakal, where they are screened, where women will be able to meet a counselor if they have been some kind of sexual-based violence or any other traumatic feeling. They are then asked, where do you want to be placed, relocated, And a partner, IOM, the UN organization, International Organization for Migration, they have flights and they fly people to different parts of the country. And in different parts of the country, local communities are prepared to receive these people, I'm so impressed by how people are welcoming, here. We have a project in Yei and with IOM, and we are preparing with the city council their reception centers and also already planning for where people that are coming there will have some kind of plot of land and being able to have some kind of living out of that. And that is not only related to conflict, it's also climate affected populations that need to move. So I think we're doing quite a lot. It's not enough because the needs are really quite big, but there is a machinery that takes care of it. And this is really a profound cooperation between the international community and the South Sudanese people, because they are the ones receiving the people. So that's a strength of this society.
There's quite a lot that is being achieved by EU in South Sudan, and I think in the long run the result is going to be outstanding.
I hope so.
Which brings us to a very important question. How does the EU determine which project to fund?
It's a very difficult question. When the needs are very large, how do you actually select where you invest? And there's coordination between the donor countries. The UN also leads coordination in the development field, so that there is some kind of division of labor, I would say. Not strictly speaking, but there is coordination on this, so that not everyone goes for the same thing. A lot has to do with what we have been doing. So you build on the experiences you have, and then you continue deepen the engagement. So it's a difficult process, and it is a bit extra difficult when you don't have an democratically elected government that really is in charge. I mean, here the ministries are governed by different parties. You have different representatives, and how do you then coordinate a whole of government approach when you have different parties involved? Now that has been the power sharing deal I spoke about, which was a necessity. But having a government in the lead, really driving development, investing their own resources, would make it much easier for donors to backstop and support a government who's actually investing in projects and doing the priority setting. That is how it should be. The priorities should be done by an elected government.
What is the European Union looking at in the upcoming 2 to 3 years?
Let me be a bit hopeful. Let me hope that all the party signatories of the peace agreement can really deeply agree to have elections in December, and that the government of unity decides to allocate the resources required, and that this political deal on the election will also mean that there will be less violence. So we have elections, and there will be a newly appointed government taking charge, and we start really building development plans for the country with no violence, more political opposition rather than military opposition. I think that's the kind of dream scenario I hope to be able to realize during my tenure here. But I really hope so. The
election has been one of the concerns that South Sudanese are praying for till to this day. Why do you think it's very important for it to take place?
As I've said, I think you need to have a government that is accountable directly to its people, and that you achieve through elections. Because then the electorate demands things of the government, not the guarantors of a peace agreement, but it's actually the people that are demanding it. I think there's a power in that social contract that an election brings to the table between the people and the people they elected. If the elected people do not deliver, the people can choose something else. That's the big difference from an arrangement that we have today.
That's quite amazing. And I think looking at the humanitarian part of the activities that the EU is implementing, what are some of the support that sustains peace beyond just the humanitarian work?
So here, right now, there are institutions from the peace agreement. So there's the RGMEC, the mechanism to the joint verification mechanism that all the parties are part of. We are supporting that mechanism together with the IGAD and the African Union. There's also a more direct monitoring of violations of the ceasefire. That mechanism is also there. It did receive EU support earlier. Right now it doesn't, but we have been providing support to that mechanism. We are supporting the constitution-making process directly. So one of our partners who received funding from us is doing nationwide workshops with all the parties on various aspects of what the future constitution should look like. This is something I think citizens should get really much more interested in, because elections is one thing. That happens once. And then next time in 4 years or 2 years or whatever. But it's the constitution that is the rule book about the elections. So the constitution cannot be neglected. It should have as much attention as the election process.
In South Sudan, and I think we have so many young people that are very creative. We have the cultural industries. How is EU involved in that, and how interested are they to support that part?
I'm happy you're bringing us to softer topics. But culture is, of course, what makes us happy. And that experience that was showcased in the cinema, we were at the Unipod at the University of Juba. Right. The reflections afterwards, I thought it was a very rich discussion. I really enjoyed it. So that's what you bring with culture. You bring reflection, you bring discussion, you bring engagement, real engagement that feels in the heart, more than the technocratic other things. So I think culture is really important part of support of relationships. So we bring the EU Film Festival. We try to bring it every year to Juba. This particular film that you and I went to was a one-off. It was on the anniversary of the Russian aggression, the war of aggression against Ukraine, and we wanted to highlight the impact it has on the population in Ukraine. But we do also have an annual venue where we invite people to watch other types of movies, more could be comedies or dramas or so. And we're having one coming up in beginning of May. Okay. So I make some advertisement right now here.
For the team to
have
join.
a look for the posters in Juba. We will be showcasing at least 3 nights of the first week of May, European movie to stimulate discussion and reflection.
The youth in South Sudan are the majority, definitely, which makes them the leaders to lead the country in the future.
Yeah.
How is the EU engaged, or what are the programs that are usually offered apart from the funding?
Yeah. This is something we are reflecting quite a lot about right now. We would like to have kind of a youth sounding board. Where, when we are discussing areas we want to support, to also meet the young people here in a more structured way. But it's a bit difficult because you need, how do you select young people? There are youth organizations here. Should we ask them to appoint someone, or how do we do it? It's quite tricky. But a sounding board with young people, just to try out what are the things that are really matter to the young people. This is something we're thinking about, and I hope we'll be able to launch something of that kind. So a youth sounding board, in addition to the more financial support that we provide to young people. I told you I worked 6 years in the UN working on how to get young people more interested in the United Nations. And now this youth sounding board would, of course, attract people to be interested in the EU as well. But if you look at countries here in Africa, I'll take Nigeria as the most stark example. More than half the population is under 18 years. And Nigeria is a very big country.
Right.
So more than 110 million young people under 18 forms that nation. And in 20 to 30 years, Nigeria will be maybe 800 million people if the projections will come true. So we need to invest in all those young people. Half the population, they will form the next generation of leaders for a very big nation. So that's just as an example why we always have to think about the young people. And I really would hope that, I know South Sudan has a tradition of looking up to elders, and that's something I really strongly recognize. It's an important feature of a society. But you also need youth and energy, especially in politics and in development. So I really hope that we will see many young people interested in participating in the elections. You need to become political leaders or great journalists like yourself.
But we need the space to be given to us.
Yeah.
And as a journalist by profession, I mentioned to you that I've worked as a radio presenter, and I used to run a show that was dedicated for the young people to exercise their voices. And one of the concerns they always wanted to talk about was they need their space as the young people from South Sudan to also be part of the political party and everything that concerns the nation.
Yeah.
So I hope this message would reach the right people today. The young people are looking to make sure that they're part of the election that is coming up, and we pray that it takes place. I think this was quite a great conversation. What message would you like the people of South Sudan to take as a concern today?
Yes. First of all, political dialogue, or dialogue, I should say, is better than violence. That's the first thing.
Right.
With violence creates a cycle of violence, and I've seen the revenge action. Someone goes and raids cows, and then the other ethnic group goes and takes revenge. I have no good answers on how to break that, but I would really encourage dialogue before violence. The other aspect is longer term thinking. So as I described, building a dam, you can't fix that it will take 5 to 10, maybe even longer years. So thinking about what you need to do right now in order to harvest quite long time in the future, I think that's the other thing. While you're dealing with the political challenges of today, you need to be able also to think about what is needed for the future, so you don't have to catch up too much. Those are the two big messages I would like to send.
What do we hope for from the EU in the coming future?
Well, no, we are remaining here. We are continuing our support to the people of South Sudan. We hope that we can engage with a newly elected, legitimate government who is accountable to its people, and that the public finance management system is transparent and open, so that we feel confidence that when we invest here, it will actually be used for development and for the people, not for something else. Right.
That's a good point. And with that, I think we've come to the end of this quite short and important conversation. Ambassador Pelle, it was such an honor having you today. We appreciate you for being part of this platform.
Thanks for inviting me again. Thank you
very much.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for being part of this episode. Make sure that you stay subscribed to our YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and stay tuned for the upcoming episode. Thank you for watching. This episode is sponsored by Dr. Send for quality machines and aroma oil. Make sure that you inbox us for orders and stay tuned to the deeper conversations with Willma.